Buongiorno a tutti e benvenuti a questo APREdialogue sulla Digital Leadership. Grazie ad Alessia per il quadro generale che ci ha dato su quelle che sono appunto le opportunità di finanziamento e tutto quello che è il policy framework che riguarda la Digital Leadership attuale, ovvero tutte le possibilità attuali e il quadro attuale di riferimento, sia quello che verrà poi, che avverrà nei prossimi anni, sia le nuove policy e le nuove opportunità. Io sono Diego Collitore e in APRE ricopro il ruolo di National Contact Point per il Cluster 4, che copre le aree di industria, digitale e spazio, e sono anche National Contact Point per quello che riguarda Digital Europe. Oggi modererò questa APREdialogue, che è un format concepito non come una semplice sessione informativa, ma più come uno scambio di prospettive e visione di alto livello. E per questo do il benvenuto ai nostri relatori di oggi. Abbiamo con noi Liviu Stirbat, che è l'Head of Unit di AI in Science and Critical Technologies presso DG ovviamente la Commissione Europea, Gustav Kalbe, Direttore di Enabling and Emerging Technologies in DG CNECT, e infine non è ancora con noi, ma a breve ci raggiungerà, Antonio Zoccoli, Presidente del National Research Center for High Performance Computing, Big Data e Quantum Computing e anche direttore Presidente dell'INFN. E l'abbiamo anche lui con noi. The dialogue will be in English. I'm just introducing a little bit the context to our Italian public. I will switch for a little bit in Italian and then again in English for the questions. Quindi, allora, questa sessione affronta una priorità strategica assoluta per l'Unione Europea, che è quella della trasformazione digitale, come driver centrale per garantire che l'Europa rafforzi la sua sovranità tecnologica e allo stesso tempo però riduca quelle che sono dipendenze eccessive da altri paesi, mantenendo quella che è la competitività. L'obiettivo anche del futuro, insomma, è essere sempre più competitivi. A tal fine la Digital Decade Policy Program, che è stata adottata nel 2021, ha fornito all'Unione Europea una cornice di governance strategica e anche legalmente vincolante. Tuttavia siamo ora al midpoint della nostra Digital Decade e c'è stata recentemente proprio una comunicazione State of the Digital Decade 2025, uscita appunto pubblicata recentemente, che ci dà un chiaro avvertimento. Il quadro generale mostra un progresso disomogeneo e la persistenza proprio di gap strutturali. Due criticità principalmente, che sono il gap tecnologico, ovvero citando proprio il report, il progresso che si è fatto è profondamente insoddisfacente in aree che sono cruciali per l'Europa, in particolare in tecnologie come l'intelligenza artificiale, i cloud e anche tutto quello che riguarda i dati. E è stato constatato che l'Unione Europea ancora affronta forti dipendenze anche nell'area dei semiconduttori. La seconda grossa criticità è proprio il gap in termini di investimenti, e per colmare questo divario tecnologico e diventare un vero AI continent è necessario appunto uno sforzo finanziario maggiore rispetto a quello che è stato fatto fino ad oggi, qualcosa senza precedenti, e la Commissione stima nel report sulla Digital Decade di midterm che questo sforzo dovrà ammontare a circa 150 miliardi l'anno come quadro complessivo di investimento. Senza questo cambio di paradigma nel panorama degli investimenti, gli obiettivi della Digital Decade non potranno essere raggiunti. Su cosa ci focalizzeremo oggi con i nostri tre speaker, con i nostri tre relatori? L'Unione Europea è stata un pioniere a livello normativo e lo è ancora, ma deve dimostrare di diventare un leader, di saper diventare anche un leader tecnologico. E oggi vogliamo proprio andare a discutere come il Multi-Annual Financial Framework 2028-2034 e più nello specifico lo European Competitiveness Fund e il prossimo FP10, il prossimo Horizon Europe, affronteranno appunto direttamente i problemi che sono riportati nel rapporto Digital Decade 2025. I will switch now in English after this short introduction in Italian for the question to our speakers. Thank you to be with us again. It's really a pleasure to have like 3 high-level speakers for today. So I will start like asking a general question to everyone. So we will go in order, following like the order of the agenda, starting with Liviu. And so I will start with a question, and then like let's say we will have around 3-5 minutes each. So take your time. And so the communication of the state of the digital decade 2025 gives us like a clear warning. Progress in key digital technology is deeply unsatisfactory. So this is a proper citation of the report. And as we look towards the new multi-annual financial framework and initiative like the European Competitiveness Fund or FP10, what will it really take for Europe to move from being like a digital rule maker to become like a true digital leader, like in the technological sense of the sentence? So, Liviu, let's start with you, and please take the floor.
Many thanks, Diego. Many thanks also to the organizers of the conference for allowing me to share some thoughts with the many participants. It's really a pleasure and an honor. Indeed, deeply unsatisfactory should not be satisfactory for us. That's a status that we should move on from and move up rather than stay or backtrack or backslide. My work focuses on scientific research and the applications of AI in scientific research. So in a sense, it's a more focused area of competitiveness and catch up, if you will. We have just adopted last week 2 strategies as an AI package, one on artificial intelligence and science and one on industrial applications called Apply AI. And both of them pave the way to or show ways in which we can do more catch up in that sense. My colleague Gustav will of course develop that as well. But what we see from my department, from the Research and Innovation Department, as you have also heard from my director, Cristina Russo, in the beginning of the conference, is that this is really extremely important for us. The President of the Commission has stated that research and innovation need to be put at the heart of the European economy, and this has been translated in the proposal from the European Commission for the next multi-annual financial framework, where you have seen that the budget for research and innovation, the proposed budget, has more than doubled, and this is really firmly integrated with the European Competitiveness Fund. There will be a seamless transition, a much better innovation journey, starting from fundamental and basic research all the way to application and innovation. To just close my brief introduction to this really fundamental question, in the science domain, for the scientists in all disciplines, this is something that we need to take home. And we have really a good place in Europe to make this catch up. We have the amazing scientific tradition. We have the amazing, excellent ecosystems, be they in social sciences, in the physical sciences, in computer science and AI science itself. And what we have proposed with the strategy, paving the way towards the next MFF, is to bring everybody one step up, to make sure that all of the scientists benefit from AI and are able to leverage this fantastic technology to produce more and better science, and that will lead to higher competitiveness for Europe. Thanks.
Much, Liviu. I would like to give the floor to Gustav now to hear like another perspective from another DG CNECT. So please take the floor.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I also would like to thank for having been invited and given the opportunity to provide some insights of these highly relevant questions that you raised. And I would say we are on a good track, but of course this is not sufficient to achieve our aims, and it's not a reason to be complacent either. What we have really seen in the last couple of years is the political landscape in Europe and the world dramatically changing due to the external factors. I mean, we have been in a number of crises, be it the health crisis, be it a tech crisis, be it now even having wars at the borders of the continent, which indeed requires a different approach than we had so far. And here we have really to work on changing the mindsets and the culture from all of us, including our stakeholders, be it policymakers, the industry, but also the scientific community. We have, as Liviu highlighted, been very successful in the last decades in running large European programs for research, which progressively have been turned more and more towards funding instruments for other policies like in industrial policy. And now with the current Commission into a tool for gaining and maintaining the competitiveness of the European Union, but also working on its security. And here we are playing now, in particular in DG Connect, but also in other places in the house, a double role. One is of the regulator, setting the framework conditions of how we want the market, how we want our citizens to be part or experience a certain technology. Let's take, for example, the AI Act. It sets a very clear legal framework how AI is to be developed and used within the European Union, and creates clarity for the markets that, you know, under these conditions, they can develop their business, they can develop their products, and everyone can benefit from this. The AI Act already was highlighting the connection to innovation, which we have been accelerating over the last year. And we have been, you know, successfully in reducing the technology gap in a number of areas. Start with high performance computing, where 10 years ago we were very much behind. We had maybe one supercomputer in the top 10. Within 2 years of launching the UHPC initiative, we're back in the world lead of high performance computing, which now enables us really to work on the next level of innovation, is on building the AI factories, the gigafactories, really providing all the necessary compute tools, but also access to the data, access to the skills, competences, and so on, in order to embrace and be part of this high technology and make the European Union a leading place also on AI. What we are really now have to work on, that's part of the proposal for the next MFF in the European Competitiveness Fund, is a better alignment, a better coordination, a better coherence between the different programs and actions that we have at the European level, but also in coordination with the national programs. We cannot afford in dispersing our resources, our efforts, running in different directions or replicating 28 times the same action. We need to focus on the key areas, the most innovative areas that are fundamental for the competitiveness of the Union in the future, and the security, as clearly spelled out in the Draghi report and in the speech he made about a month ago. And therefore, you will see that in the Competitiveness Fund, we're going to continue in clearly linking topics from fundamental research to access to infrastructure, as Liviu mentioned, for frontier science, access to public infrastructure for innovation, deployment of infrastructures, build up of the startups, creating a market demand, and linking all the high-tech areas together. It doesn't help us if we're just buying and installing a gigafactory, if ultimately we do not have the capacity also to develop the applications that have to run on it, if we cannot tap into this large amount of brilliant minds and startups that are developing the models to run them. But also we need to develop the underlying core technology the hardware components, the software, and include innovative future technology domains like quantum computing, for example, that will be the next generation of maintaining this computing power. So I would not say everything is black, everything is not white either, but we are now setting the right directions that in the next years, with the next financial framework, we can really address this vision that was so well spelled out by Professor Draghi.
Gustav, I think we will, like in the next questions, we will deepen a little bit like the link between research and market, how we can reach and we can how we can reach this link. So I would like to give the floor now to Antonio. Antonio, you can speak like also like from a national perspective, if you want. I mean, you are director of an infrastructure as well, so you can use different hat to give us like your perspective on like what really Europe needs to become like a digital leader and not just a rule maker.
Okay, thank you. So I changed my head. So thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. Let me just summarize what are the ingredients we need to get a leadership in Europe. So we are talking about digital leadership. In order to have a digital leadership, we must be leader in AI and let's say in cloud and the capability to handle the data. To be leader in this field, you need a few ingredients. First of all, you need the capability to process the data, to train the AI algorithm. In order to achieve this goal, you need a supercomputer. And as big as is the AI algorithm you have to train, you need a very big supercomputer. If you want to train ChatGPT, you need one of the top 10 supercomputer, possibly optimized for AI or generative AI algorithms, and then it will take a few months in order to train a big algorithm like that one. So you need a big supercomputer infrastructure in a nation. Then you need a second ingredient, which are the skills. So the capability to write the algorithm and to optimize it. So people, skilled people. The third ingredient is what the fuel for this machine. You may imagine AI like a steam machine, so you need some fuel to make this functioning, and the fuel are the data. So at the end, what we are doing now is to have a kind of new raw material, which is called data, and we need the capability to extract the value from the data. And so you need good data, and then the algorithm to extract the value from this data. And these are the main ingredients that every nation in Europe must have, not necessarily in his own country, but must access both to the supercomputing infrastructure, must have skilled people, must have good data sets. In order to handle the good data set, clearly you need, and to access them, you need a cloud infrastructure. So for this, keeping this in mind, Europe has launched in the last year, let's say, many different initiatives. One is EuroHPC for the infrastructure, another one is the European Open Science Cloud to handle the data. And there are many projects working in this area. What is the situation, let's say, in Italy for that? In Italy, we are very well aligned. We have inaugurated the first pre-exascale computer in Italy is Leonardo. At that time, it was the number 4 in the top 500 rank. And Leonardo is one of the 3 pre-exascale supercomputers in Europe, and this was inaugurated in 2022, so 1 week before the launch of ChatGPT. So for once in a life, we were very well aligned with the times. Now we have exploited both the call for European Open Science Cloud and the next call for EuroHPC. We have exploited the funds for the recovery plan, and we have created a national distributed infrastructure, which is including on one side the HPC supercomputer like Leonardo, and the other side the data center, typically from INFN. And we have upgraded this infrastructure. We have upgraded the network to transmit the data at multiple 4 terabit per second. So it means that we have a network which is one of the fastest in the world in our country. And we are upgrading Leonardo with a new partition called Lisa in honor of Mona Lisa. And we have participated to the Euro HPC AI Factory call, and we won one of the 2 exascale computers that will be installed next year in Italy. So on this point of view, we are very well aligned, and we are at the frontier of technology. We have the infrastructure. We have also many skilled people, many young people working in this field, thanks also to the recovery plan funding. We have this National Center on HPC, Big Data and Quantum Computing, 300 million. Half of them were invested in the infrastructure, half of them were invested in people to write application which could be useful both for the academia research project and for the private sector. So we are exploiting at best the opportunity that Europe made available to us in this year. So the next challenge is to go to the market. And this will be a very big step because we know how to exploit supercomputing, we know how to exploit AI, we know how to extract value from the data for research. It's completely different to make this action in the industrial market in Italy, because we have very few big companies with all the competence to exploit this possibility, many small and medium enterprises which don't have any competence in the field. And so if you want them to exploit this opportunity, you need to make in place a targeted action on that. And this will be the challenge of the next years. And we hope that we will be able to do together to the European tools that Europe will make available in the next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this overview on this first question. I think we can go to the second one, because also like all the speakers already cited like the connection between research and the market. And I think this second question will focus on this matter. So we know that Europe already like has a set of fundings instrument for digital technologies, and it works quite well. So we're talking about Horizon Europe, we talk about Digital Europe, there is Connecting European Facilities Digital, and each is addressing like a specific part of the ecosystem of the value chain. Anyway, we have seen fragmentation that everyone wants to avoid. So if we look ahead to FP10 and the European Competitiveness Fund, which kind of mechanism do you envision, or in the case of Antonio, you would like to see to better connect research, innovation, and market deployment, so to ensure that Europe investment can really translate in digital leadership in the market? So I will go with the same order if you are okay with this. So I would like to start with the DGRTD, Liviu. Please take the floor.
Hey, thanks. Again, a very sharp question that goes straight to the heart of it, because we are all now in this competitiveness drive, which is probably the single most important current challenge that we're facing. We have in the proposal for the next framework program, FP10, as well as the Competitiveness Fund, tried to sketch a lot of this already, and you see it there, the kind of mechanisms we see. I would start perhaps maybe first with simplification, because this is one of the key components of competitiveness, and this is something that we have heard from our beneficiaries, from industry, from academia as well. This is something that goes to the heart. We'll try to speed up grants. We will try to use a lot of technology to facilitate applications, and this, the beneficiaries don't wait for us. They already use that technology, but we'll make that use much easier. In addition to simplification, we will also have more firepower. The professor was talking just now about steam engines. Money is we're not burning it literally, but it's an important ingredient. And as I mentioned before, the overall budgetary envelope for research and innovation will be increased in the proposal. But in addition to that, we are scaling up certain parts of it that go in the direction of digital technology, that go in the direction of a better connection to deployment and to market. We're, if you will, growing those even more. And I'm talking in particular about the European Innovation Council, but also the new scale-up fund that we are working to set up as part of the European Innovation Council, that will go much more to meet the needs of the scale-ups of Europe, that we avoid what is sometimes called the double valley of death for companies, that we first need to traverse from research to startups, and then from startups to scale-ups, to make sure that they feel at home and that they're well nurtured in Europe and they stay and contribute to the prosperity of Europe, rather than fleeing in search of venture capital funds elsewhere. But even on a more concrete scale, and I turn back again to the topic that I know best and which is really fascinating me, which is this application of artificial intelligence tools in scientific research. We have seen this in the strategy that I mentioned was adopted last week. There's a huge focus on the interplay with the private sector. There's really a very, very strong acknowledgement of the need for public-private partnership in doing this. It is not just science for the sake of science, but it's science and more and better science with the help of AI for the sake of prosperity, societal challenges being tackled, and so on. And the private sector plays a very important role here, because they, first of all, do research themselves, but also they need to make sure that they integrate firmly and quickly and early on the discoveries that are being made and that are being valorized. And linked to that as well, we are working on a valorization, what we call a valorization strategy as well, which means basically patenting, but also licensing from universities to the private sector. And that too is much more prominent in the proposal for FP10. All of this is really coming together, I think, very, very nicely in the proposal, and will bring us even closer to this goal of competitiveness, of a healthy, very strong and very diverse and very well distributed throughout Europe community of innovators that has a true European added value. I would leave it up because I think Gustav as well can share some very interesting insights also from the way Digital Europe has worked in terms of deployment.
Thank you very much, Liviu. So let's go to the other perspective from another DG, so DG Connect. Gustav, please give us your perspective.
Yes, thank you for the question. I mean, for us, this has been a preoccupation for the last couple of years, how we can connect in a effective way the research programs or efforts we're doing with innovation, the deployment of systems, infrastructures, and ultimately the uptake by users, by the market. This is what we have described, for example, in the Quantum Europe strategy as the life cycle approach, coming from the recognition, but also the experience that we have with running the quantum priority in the Commission. not only since yesterday, but for a couple of decades. If you go back to 2018, even 2021, under the current framework program, we had the Quantum Flagship. It's a research innovation program that was having as a key mission to transform the research discoveries into more practical solutions, to move out of the part of science and move towards prototypes or real applications. We were taken happily by surprise how quickly the flagship projects were delivering. And after the first round of projects 3 years later, we had for each project that we had funded under the flagship, one spin-off product and one startup company, which then motivated us to move higher up in the value chain by looking for the deployment of the technology. For example, by going to the UHPC networks of supercomputers and launching procurements to buy those quantum computers coming out of our projects from the startups that were created there, and deploy them as part of the Digital Europe program. We were working on the connectivity via the CEF program. So as the research innovation program was accelerating and delivering tangible, practical results, we started to seize opportunities to launch initiatives, programs on all the other areas that we need in order to build the full ecosystem, taking advantage of the emergence of the CHIPS Act, for example, to start developing the fabrication facilities in Europe through the pilot lines, in being part of the EIC accelerator program, in investing into the capital of the startups. So we are really building program by program the ecosystem. This, however, has also shown the limitations that this, let's call it, opportunistic approach was bringing, which is now clearly addressed in the Quantum Europe strategy, is that we need this life cycle approach. And here we have to do two things. One is, let's say, from a programmatic perspective, which is being addressed in the proposal for the European Competence Fund and Framework Program 10, by simplifying the framework programs, removing this distinction between a Horizon Europe program focusing on research or grants, a program like Digital Europe that is focusing on building the cross-border capabilities between the member states, a program like CEF that is focused towards connectivity, and so on. I believe my colleagues in the Budget Authority had identified like 14 different programs. So the big progress there is we'll have a single program that will allow us to cover from basic science to innovation, uptake measures, deployment, investment in capital, and so on, without having these boundaries between the different programs or legal basis, and really build this life cycle approach. And I would like to make a concrete example that you can take by analogy what we did 7-8 years ago with high performance computing, setting a very clear long-term target, like the European Union in 10 years wants to have a standalone operational quantum computer that presents quantum advantage. So how do we get there? There's a number of fundamental scientific questions still to be resolved. We need to work on the prototypes, integrating the hardware, the software, the applications, bringing the users really to understand what the machine is good for, and maturing it. We need to support the companies, the startups that are developing those technologies, so that ultimately all actions that we're going to support are covering one particular aspect of reaching this long-term goal of this operational quantum computer, and all those actions are aligned and contribute to each other. The other alignment or coordination we need to improve there is aligning and coordinating the efforts there with what the member states are doing. And this is coming back to closing the question about the funding gap. If we take the national programs by themselves, if we take the union program by itself, we are between, 500 million and maybe 2 billion overall expenditure in quantum. But if we sum that up, we are at close to 11 billion under current framework. If we sum up all the professionals' expertise we have, we are close to 100,000 professionals in that field. That we need to concentrate. That we need to focus on a number of high-tech domains like quantum, but to do a similar thing on semiconductor, photonics, AI, if we really want to make the difference. We can no longer afford of dispersing very thinly our efforts, very thinly our funding in all possible directions, when we know that there are a number of technological challenges, a number of innovation gaps that we absolutely need to address as a priority if we want to make sure that European can keep their living standards, that the continent remains competitive at the worldwide scale, but also ultimately is ensuring the security of our citizens, of our industry, but also our physical security of the countries and the continents, as access to those high-tech domains are becoming really now almost weapons that are being used. Just to mention as examples, the difficulties we are now having of accessing the rare earth raw materials that we need to sustain our digital transformation from solar panels to electric vehicles, the difficulties we might face in accessing high-tech components like the AI chips. So this is now really becoming a matter of security. And just to close my intervention with quoting our Commission President, Ms. von der Leyen, in her speech on the State of the Union, where he said, we have to fight now for our beliefs, we have to fight for our values, we have to fight for our independence. And this, she clearly mentioned, passes also through making sure we are innovative and have the access to our indigenous technology, our indigenous industry and technical and scientific capabilities to be leading in all these high-tech areas.
Very clear and very useful, I think, for us and for the public. So I would like to give the floor now to Antonio. You can give us also, like, of course, I mean, the part of the question that relates to you is mostly like, what would you like to see? But also, like, what would you like to see in terms of national funding, maybe national mechanisms connected to the European fundings, of course.
So, thank you. So, coming back to the discussion, I think in Italy we have to make in place two actions, or in Italy and in Europe. One is typically for Italy is to go to the market, and as I told you, we are very well aligned with the development of the technology and of the infrastructure, thanks to the Europe investment and the co-funding of the investment from Italy. So usually when you buy a new HPC supercomputer, half of the cost is paid by Europe, half by Italy. So Italy has invested more than 1 billion euros in this field. So we have all the instruments to make our companies competitive. Within the National Center of Supercomputing, we put in place a lot of action in order to move the project from the low TRL, typically of the academia, to the high TRL for the market. And we managed to do. We had 15 big companies. We launched a round of about 100 projects with them to go to the market in different fields. And we have also launched another 100 projects with company external to the centers. So this is working. We have a very good response from the market. But at the end, if you count how many companies we managed to get involved, is a few hundreds. While we should go to the full Italian market. And are 100,000 companies, something like that. And this will be the real challenge we have to put in place. So for this, we need an action at the system level from the government, in my opinion. This action can be matched to the action of Europe, but if we want really to go in this direction, we need a strong push from the government to involve all the productive system, Italian productive system. I have to say that in the current situation, we are very competitive. We are at the frontier, and if you have a startup, a spin-off, a company which is willing to engage in this field, they can be competitive with the company from US or from China. I think that there is not awareness of that. I think that most of the people think that, okay, we have already lost the game, and they have the other countries are already too ahead for us. But this is not true. I think that this is also another place where we should invest, and to make people aware of the fact that the game is open and we may win if we want. There are two more problems that should be faced, in my opinion, and one is together to Europe. We are the tendency in Europe to put too many constraints and too many rules. This is true for Italy, of course, and this is also true for Europe. While when you go to US, the constraints are much, much less with respect to Europe. And this is in some way not fostering the development and the spread of this technology in Europe. And I think, I know that this is in some way not in our soul, but I think the system would benefit if we can, if we manage to lower down the complication and the rules we are putting, the constraints we are putting in the development of AI. Finally, the last point, Gustav mentioned the quantum computing. I think that Europe is quantum technology, quantum communication. I think that Europe is making, again, the right strategy, have a long-term view, and saying that we would like to build up a system where we are able to produce a quantum computer, to develop the technology, to handle the technology, and so on. Perfect. I think that this is working. We have companies which are producing quantum computer in Europe. We are developing research in this field. In Italy is the same. We don't have a big company in this field, but we have a lot of research group. We are using and buying commercial quantum computer from European companies. So this is working. What is missing in Europe, if we talk about independence of Europe from the other country, is a capability to produce microchips. And this is, in my opinion, a big problem of Europe if we want to be independent. If tomorrow US will decide not to give us the chips, we will not be able to build up a computer in Europe. So this is a problem, and despite the effort it was made by the European Commission, I think that we are very, very far from the goal we should have in this field. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio, for your opinion, and I think it's really nice to hear like some positiveness, like that we are still in the game, even if there are gaps, but we are still playing the game. So now I would like to make like a single question for each of you, let's say more dedicated to your area of expertise. So I would like to start to Liviu, stressing like a point he already cited in his previous answer. So the question is on the GRTD, how the GRTD intends to ensure that the Horizon Europe scientific excellence is translating in some way in scaling up in large-scale deployment of strategic technologies. So you partially answered already to this question. I would like to have some more detail of What are you planning?
Indeed. Again, really very, very sharp questions. For us, I would add to what I've already mentioned, the firepower, the funding, but also the focus on valorization and management of intellectual property and getting the deployment mindset already from the early stages of basic scientific research. I would add to that also, how should I put it? A realization that not everybody plays by the same rules. And this is something that was in the DNA of European science. We have been early proponents and are staunch defenders of open science, because this is how science progresses. We have gone through scientific and science diplomacy throughout different problems that and geopolitical conflicts that the world has seen. But in this age and context, in addition to the focus on commercialization that I mentioned, there's also a growing focus on economic security and research security in particular. We have worked with the member states to strengthen their defenses, if you will, to make sure that the scientists themselves are well educated in these areas and take to heart the proper way and the considerations that need to be kept in mind when collaborating internationally. So open science, but with caution and without naivety, if I can say that. Something else that really comes to mind, also building on what Gustav had mentioned, all the money that has historically been put into this, also has led to some very interesting and key, crown jewels for the European scientific ecosystem. And we're uncovering them and building up on them through this economic security perspective, identifying reverse dependencies, for example, where the world looks to Europe to continue going. And the professor mentioned before that if the US decides not to sell us chips anymore, we wouldn't be able to build a computer. The same can be said about a lot of the technologies that Europe has. And Gustav, of course, can develop that. I won't go into detail, thinking of ASML and chip printing facilities. But it doesn't only come in the digital sector, even though this is now, everything is digital. I would give an example from biotechnology, which is also one of the critical technologies that have been identified by the European Commission and which is being taken forward in the economic security sense in my DG, looking throughout the value chains of biotech companies to identify the key players, in addition to the vulnerabilities, but the key European players that we need to safeguard and we need to continue nurturing to preserve this reverse dependency, the world needing and not being able to innovate and to develop in this area without Europe. Maybe I'll stop with simplification, coming back to that as well, because this is something that's really important also for Commissioner Zaharieva, the commissioner in charge of startups, science and innovation, that has been really dominating the work that we've been doing and really trying to do away with a lot of the bureaucracy around applications, really getting the scientists to do what they do best, which is to discover things, breakthroughs, but also to innovate. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Liviu. It was really clear, and I think that simplification is something that also, like, the applicants are asking for, to save some effort as well, and to have like some more certainties when applying for a project to get funded. Thank you again. And now I would like to give the floor to Gustav before I will ask a question, of course. It's very similar to the one I did for DG RTD. This one is for DG CNECT, of course. And we know Europe is like heavily investing in enabling technologies like high performance computing, quantum, advanced networks, and sometimes for the companies it's difficult to use this infrastructure, to use these new technologies. So which kind of mechanism are you foreseeing, like to translate this investment into industrial innovation, new services, having like a real economic impact in the European landscape?
Diego, that's a fair question, and really one of the central points we need to already addressing is precisely how can we accelerate or foster the uptake of the technologies or the solution that the technologies propose by the users at large, but in particular also by the industry that might use them. Here we have several approaches. One is via the deployment of public infrastructures. And I will take as example the AI factories that we're building, and where Italy is so prominently part, as Professor Zoccoli has mentioned. The whole point here is to create places where you can access the computing facilities that you need, where you can bring your own data, but also access the large, excellent databases that we have in the Union, be it public like European Open Science Cloud, or be it privately held, bringing also together all the skills, talents, and support services that you would need in order to take advantage and really take most out of this technology. I mean, you can be a neophyte in AI, you can be an experienced user, you can just be very good at writing an AI algorithm, but how do you now take a high-performance computer, you take a big AI machine in order to train your model, in order to test your algorithms, in order to refine it. And then once the models are created and trained, you need to look at how you make those models accessible, how you make them usable for the wider range of users. And that's the heart of the Apply AI strategy, where we have identified a number of key application domains, robotics, health, finance, but also basic science. So how do you make or incentivize or motivate the SMEs, but also large industries, to embrace and adopt into their business process, into their applications, what AI can offer? And that's precisely this AI factory concept, where all those points meet, where you find a facility that will help you get familiar with the technology, that will help you adapt the potential, the power of that new technology to your very particular problem, to your very personal use cases. To some extent, this is enlarging the concept that we had on the European Digital Innovation Hubs. These are a number of structural approaches we have put in place and that we are expanding to accelerate and facilitate the uptake of these technologies. But of course, we have other similar initiatives like that in other high-tech domains. We can talk about the semiconductors, like Professor Zoccoli mentioned. We are in Europe, we are at a far distance from countries like the United States, but also Far East, in designing and producing the high-end chips, like the AI chips that we need for these modern and high-tech areas. We are still very strong and have our own capacities on the more mature components that you need for, let's call them low-end applications, like controllers that you will find maybe in the current cars or in the smartphones, etc. But how do we close this gap towards the high-end semiconductor chips? Here again, setting up public infrastructures, public services to help fabless companies accessing design platform, accessing design competences that allows them to develop and design those high-end chips that we're missing. And then on the other hand, also attracting and facilitating the investments we need in building those fabrication plants, where it takes tens of billions to build them, using all instruments we have that are not technology, but that are more regulatory, like exceptions to the state aid rules, attracting more investment by making the conditions simpler. The colleagues in the House are working on the Finance and Savings Union, working on the so-called 28th regime to harmonize and facilitate cross-border investment of private capital, including from risk capital, from entities like pension funds that for the moment, for legal reasons, are not allowed to invest outside their borders or not allowed to take more risky investments. And last but not least, what we're also doing via the deployment of public infrastructures or setting up public use cases is by engaging with certain market sectors or certain application domains in helping them transpose technology. Here I would like to take the example of quantum sensors for medical applications, where we have a very large economic market sector, which is public health. That is like 10% of our gross domestic product, with very established processes and tools, with a very conservative users that will not take a quantum sensor because I tell them, believe me, quantum is better, it will save everybody's life. We need to show that by integrating a quantum sensor, never mind how it works, it's just providing you a functionality. By integrating this quantum sensor in the classical existing magnetoresonance imaging systems, that suddenly when you do a scan of a brain, you will not see only a cancer at the level of a big part of the organ, but you will see individual cancerous cells. And providing the medical sector with the background competences and skills they need in order to then embrace and transpose this new possibility that the technology is offering to their routine diagnostic and treatments, where we need to help them understand what difference the technology will make and supporting the deployment through not only funding instruments, but also by bringing the necessary competence and skills that they need in order to uptake this technology.
Thank you very much, Gustav. I mean, we have now, I think, a clear perspective of what will happen in the next years, at least what are the objectives of DG-RTD and DG-CONNECT. So, last quick question to Antonio before closing with a very short question to everyone. So, Antonio, what needs to happen? You are head of an infrastructure. So, what needs to happen for this infrastructure to be truly integrated in the next framework program, but not just funded? How can we make them more sustainable and more impactful?
So I think that we are at the moment integrated in the European framework. As Gustav was saying, we are now installing an AI factory in Italy. This will be integrated in the European context. We have within this project a part of the budget dedicated to the development of applications. We will concentrate to try to create databases available for the academia and for the market if you want to develop AI algorithm. So I think that we tried, as Italy, we tried to be aligned with the opportunity that the different framework programs in Europe are giving us, both from DG-RTD and from DG-CONNECT. So I think that from this point of view, at the moment, the Italian system looks to be sustainable. Clearly, this is a domain where frequently you have to rebuild your infrastructure because the technology evolves and your supercomputing power become obsolete, and then you have continuous investment in that. But I think that Europe will give us the possibility to continue along this way. Europe put in place another initiative, which is called the Gigafactory, and where, again, as Italy, we are planning to participate. The idea, again, is a long-term view, very, very smart. So say, look, if we are really able to involve the private sector in this game, then we are going to develop AI algorithm, we are going to develop data set, to produce data set and so on. Where do we put everything? We go to Google, we go to Amazon, where do we go? Clearly, the strategy of Europe is no. We have to build up something in Europe to be independent from US or from any other country. And again, this is a smart move, in my opinion. And again, we, as Italy, we will participate to this competition in order to have one of the 4 or 5 big centers installed in Italy in order to allow our private sector, industrial sector, academia, but mainly private, to access the cloud services, to have a place where to put the data, retrieve the data, analyze the data, and so on. So again, I think that following by close the European strategy, Italy is aligned and is on the floor. So we are really try to exploit and try to develop a national strategy. Again, let me spend 2 words instead on the involvement of the private sector, which I think is a challenge for Italy. Because as Gustav mentioned, the problem is for us, for many small enterprises, to know what are their personal use case. So the problem is not having the capability to access an infrastructure to develop an AI algorithm for my small company, but to know which is the algorithm I need to deploy for my small company in order to increase my competitiveness. So it's again a problem of awareness. And most of the companies don't have the skills, don't have the knowledge for that. So this is a place where Italy must invest. And in order to invest in this, clearly, we need to use our budget, our own funding, but also the European initiative. And this is fundamental for Italy to make a step forward in the field.
Thank you, Antonio. I think it's useful for the public to have like your national perspective as well. So I really want to thank everyone to be here with us, and I want to close like with really just one word answering this question. And thanks to be here. Hope to see you like in the next APRE conference next year. For sure, we will invite you like in other events. Just to close up. So we have talked about technologies, investments, governance, but if you have to pick one thing that Europe should do differently in the tomorrow morning to secure like the digital future, what would it be? Liviu, let's start with you. Just one word, few words as well. It's okay.
I would say ambition. I think really that's something that, and we've heard it throughout the conversation today. We don't lack the capacity, but we sometimes lack the ambition. We don't believe in ourselves enough, I think.
Thank you, Liviu. Gustav, what about you?
Yes, I would like to complement what Liviu said. We should also have the courage, to start things where we have not understood everything, where technology is maybe not 100% proven, but just take it and go.
Thank you. Antonio?
I share ambition, courage, and chips.
Thank you again. And now I will switch to Italian. Grazie a tutti a tutti gli speaker per essere stati con noi, e introduco solo brevemente quello che accadrà nella seconda parte della mattinata. Parleremo di Clean Transition and Industrial Decarbonization, e seguirà a me, insomma, Miriam De Angelis, con un briefing su quelle che sono le opportunità su queste tematiche, e subito dopo una pre-dialogue moderato da Chiara Pocaterra sempre su Clean Transition and Industrial Decarbonization. Grazie a tutti per l'attenzione.